Atelier, excited to be back with you today. So I can't believe it's been a month since the last live stream that we did. If you remember, at the end of January, we did one where I did a little drawing of a river scene with some waterfalls, that type of thing. Learned a lot during that live stream. This is a second attempt at it, and hopefully the microphone's working okay this time. Hopefully music won't be too loud. I'm actually going to go no music today based on some of the feedback that I got. So that way that doesn't get in the way. So if you want some music while you pop in and watch, or whether you watch the recorded version of this later, feel free to play your own, I guess. Just a reminder that my studio is Fount Atelier. And as you can see behind me, I've got spots for students. I do online and in-person art coaching. So if you're watching this and you want to learn how to do some of it yourself, just let me know and visit my site right there. Okay, so the plan for today is to do a little bit of painting. So I've got a reference here that I want to show you. This is what we're going to be painting today. Now, I sent this out in an email previously this morning. So all of my email subscribers have the file of this. If you're not on that list and you want that, go ahead and shoot me an email. There it is right there below my picture in the stream, and I will get you on that list. And so essentially every morning of the stream, I will send out an email with the link to the stream as well as a reference that I'll be using. So if you want to sketch or paint along with me, you are welcome to do so. So I thought that might be kind of a fun thing to do. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the reference photo that we have here. So this reference photo is a picture I took of a family member's farm pond in rural Nebraska. It was on a beautiful fall day. I think it was October 30th, something like that. I loved all of the kind of the sun hitting the grass, the areas that were in shadow still had frost on it. I liked the everything going on, all of the mist, I guess, over the water. So I thought this would be a fun one to do. So I have my stuff set up here. We'll get to it. I don't want to waste too much time. So I'm going to leave the reference right here to the right up so you can see it while I work on it. And I'm going to zoom in just a little bit on mine. That way you can see that. Now I'm painting on Belgian, an oil prime Belgian linen canvas. I really like working on this. It has a real nice smooth surface, and the oil doesn't absorb. Oil paint doesn't absorb quite as much as it does on an acrylic ground canvas. Let's see. I'm going to pull up the comments. Okay, and if there's any technical issues, leave a comment. That way I know. Otherwise, I may not know. Okay, and as far as paint, I'm going to go ahead and use a water mixable oil. So this is my palette that I'm going to use today. It's my Pashad palette. And I'll run you through my colors here. So I use a limited palette, which just means for every painting I do, I use the same 6 colors to start. So I've got a titanium white. This is the Artisan brand water mixable oils. So this is a lemon yellow. If you're using a limited palette, you really want a clean, neutral yellow, and this one will do the trick. And then I've got an alizarin crimson permanent, a ultramarine blue, a burnt umber, and I have a cadmium red over here, but I hardly ever use it, just for those colors that I can't get with my alizarin. And then as you see here on the rest of the palette, before I went live, I went ahead and I mixed up a selection of colors here. And these are a lot of the main colors that I see in the scene. And I do that. I pre-mix most of the time because then the actual painting process goes a lot faster. Because then I'm not mixing as I go, and I mix all these up with the palette knife. So that way I can just pull from them. I have plenty of paint. It allows me to work faster. It takes a little bit of time up front, but the more practice you get, the better you get and faster you get at mixing all of these from the limited palette. And it's something that we go over in my in my course or my coaching program. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to get started here, and I'm going to go for live for an hour here. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to get this full thing finished in an hour, but we'll see what happens. First thing I like to do is tone this. So I've got a big brush right here, and I'm going to get some water in it. And I just like to usually keep it simple and go with a burnt umber tone. So I'm going to go ahead and tone this. I just use a big cheap brush for this. And by the way, don't be shy. If you've got any questions, make sure you leave them in the comments section. And happy to answer any questions you have as we go. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do a quick drawing of this. Now, when I do my drawings, I try and keep it really, really simple. There's no reason to get super detailed. And I'm going to go ahead and see if we can get the focus set. So pardon the blurriness for just a second. There we go. That will ensure that the autofocus doesn't pick up on my hand. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start sketching this in. So we got the horizon line there, and I'll pipe in with some comments here or there. You know, I'm not necessarily going to give you a play-by-play of every pencil stroke that I make, but you know, it's a little hard to see on the camera, but it should show up better once we get started painting. All right, there we go. That's as extensive as my sketches usually are for these Alla Prima just oil sketches that I do. Now, of course, if I were doing a more polished studio painting, I'd spend more time to get that drawing really accurate. But for something like this, it really is meant to just be a sketch. So the brushes I'm going to use today, other than that big brush I toned it with, sorry if it's clanking around, I've got these guys here. Now, these are not fancy, expensive brushes. I really don't believe you need to have fancy, expensive brushes to do a good painting. These are just Dugato brushes. You can kind of see the name on the edge of the brush there. This is let's see, what do we got? A number 2 round. This one, the numbers are completely worn off. This one's a 0. I imagine this one's a 5-0, so even smaller. I don't typically use a lot of different brushes when I paint. Try and keep it really simple, and these will get the job done. I'm also going to stick a little bit of medium in here. So I'm going to pour some of this in. I don't need much. It's a Artisan, Winsor & Newton Artisan water mixable painting medium. So that's in there. And then if I'm out and about plein air painting, I'll put some water in the other side. We can just go ahead and do that. Why not? Since these are water mixable oils, the water will serve as a solvent and clean my brushes out for me. One note on that, you got to be careful because the water is not meant to really be used in the process of painting. So let's see here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. So first thing I'll start with is probably the water. I like to start general to specific. And so I'm going to grab the blue. Let's see, I'll try and go back and forth here. So I'll show you what I'm grabbing. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this blue right here. And then you notice in the reference that the sky gets lighter and warmer as it goes down. So I'm going to then transition into some of these other colors here. So I'm going to grab that and put that down, and we will rock and roll. So again, if I'd encourage you, if you don't want to listen to dead silence while I do this, to throw on a little bit of music yourself. I might try moving that down a little bit. See if, there we go. Just to avoid the reflection. That way you can see it a little bit clearer. Grab some of my lighter paint. I'm going to grab a little bit of the orange that I have here and just bring that in along the horizon. Now it's going to start to turn a little blue or a little green on me. So I'll grab some more white. Now, if you've used oil paint before, the beauty of oils is that they blend so nicely, nice and smooth. So that's what we're doing here. And I always keep a little rag with me as well, so that I can kind of wipe my brush off as I go. If I move that all the way down, you can see that color a little bit better. All right, then I'll go ahead and get started on the area back behind the water to the left. Now, as you can see, the mist is covering that a little bit. And so I want to go ahead, and it's kind of a warm mist. So I'm going to put down a kind of a warm gray first. I want to keep the value relatively light because it is in the distance. And I'm not going to be real concerned about this looking perfect. That's not the idea of these little sketches that I do. I mean, when I say sketch, it really is a sketch. And that kind of continues on over here, and we get a couple little trees or something way back there. We'll go back through with my sky, my horizon color, and just soften that up. I'll come back in a little bit and put the mist in there, but we'll say that will work for now. And I like to start dark to light, so I'm going to move to the water now, and I'm going to go ahead and start filling that in. Now the water is quite dark in the foreground. And this might seem a little crazy, but I'm going to go ahead and work up this dark value pretty high. You know, I think that I could use there's some dark accents in there. It might be hard for the camera to pick up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually mix up. So I'll show you how I do this. I'll actually grab a little bit of my burnt umber, a little bit of my ultramarine, mix up a dark neutral. I'll just stick it right here. Sorry, realized I mixed that up off the screen. It's not very helpful. All right, move that over, bring this guy back down. Now I don't want this to be black down here. And again, the cameras aren't going to pick it up as quite as well as I am actually seeing it. Even though the camera I'm using is a nice camera, it is still will have trouble picking up some of the subtleties of the values. Many times we underappreciate just how sensitive and great our eyes are at that. All right, so I'm going to grab some of my still dark blue, but you can see where in the picture, this is about the area where it starts to transition. So I'm going to go ahead and lay that down on top. Because it has more white in it, it's going to make everything just a bit more opaque. Let me tilt this up a little bit. There you can see it a little bit better. In fact, since that seems to help, let's do this. We're going to put a lid right underneath here and see if that helps. If you think that helps, shoot me a comment and leave me a comment. That way I know you guys can see it. Okay. Another thing that I might do is, and if for some reason comments aren't turned on, shoot me an email and let me know. All right, I'm going to also adjust the exposure just a little bit. There we go. It's a little bit light, but hopefully now you'll be able to see it. All right, back at it here. So as that continues to get lighter as it goes up, I'm going to add and layer on a lighter blue. There is just a little bit of a green tinge mixed into this blue. So I'll throw that in there. What's interesting is a lot of times people will reflect, in water reflections, they'll reflect exactly what's above the water, and while it's close, it usually is not the same. The values are just slightly different. And so you'll notice that my sky reflection here is going to be just a bit different than the actual sky. Using a very light touch to try and get that transition correct. Then, of course, as we get close to the horizon, it starts to get really light. put that right along there. Again, if you're just joining us, thank you for popping in. I'm Cody with Fount Atelier, working on this little sketch here, oil sketch. If you have any questions along the way, make sure you leave me a comment and ask. Happy to answer any questions you have. There could be questions about this particular piece that I'm doing. And yeah, it could be a question about any art topic. Looks like maybe the comment option isn't showing up. Mary, thanks for sending that to me. What I'm going to do is I'm going to leave my email up right there. And I'll just move this up a bit. And if you have a comment or question and you're watching the live stream, shoot me an email. If you're watching this after the fact, I will still answer your question or comment later. All right, I'll go ahead and put in. There is a reflection of that those trees in the background, but notice they are pretty light and warm. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that in. Oh, that's not dark enough. Continue to darken that up. There we go. That value's a little bit better. If we tilt it up too much, it might skew the perspective on the camera, but we can do that. I really want to make sure you guys get a decent view of this. Just drag that right along there. Now remember, there's kind of a misty, warm mist kind of working its way into these trees back here. So I'm going to go ahead and just grab an orange from my premixtures and add that. And you'll notice there's a slight reflection right between here and here, between the edge of the water and those trees. Now, I'm going to purposely leave those trees in the background lighter than they are in the photo, just to help give them a sense of depth and distance, like they're far away. That's the great part. We have to remember, and I tell this to my coaching students all the time, that the photo is just your starting point. don't be afraid to use a little bit of artistic license and alter it slightly. That horizon is just a little bit too consistent for my taste, so I'm going to come in here and I got to get a good color back for that horizon, but I'm going to come in here. Ooh, too light. And tap that down. It's always good to have some variety in shapes. There we go. That'll be better. Okay, so that's that. Now there's probably a little more work to do with the water, but so as far as smoothing, softening, it really has a glass-like surface. And just so you know, the approach that I'm using with this really is the same approach I would use if I were to go plein air painting. So although I'm doing this in the studio today, it really wouldn't change much. Okay, so let's move to the grass. I'm going to fill this area in here. Because in this scene, it is a early morning sunrise scene, that light, the sun is low in the sky, the light's coming at us at a low angle, and so all of those light rays are really warm. The temperature of the light is very warm, and so in the shadow areas, they're not getting that warm light, and so they're reflecting the color of the sky. And, that warm, cool, dynamic contrast is really what makes scenes like this interesting to look at, really eye-catching. So I want to make sure that we play that up. So as you can see, I'm blending the bottom of this right in with the pond. That's okay. We'll go ahead and separate those out later. That way we can tell where the grass is versus the water. All right, good. Probably come back in with some purples later, some more light blues, a little bit of a really dark neutral, like a black, to add some detail in there. But again, general to specific, just going to block in the major shape first and then go from there. And again, if you have any questions, I'm not sure if the comment feature is working like I thought it would. Why would everything work? That would be silly. And so feel free to go ahead and shoot me a comment or question via email. I have it pulled up in front of me. I have an email there on the screen. So I'm happy to answer any questions that come in. And if any of you are taking me up on my invitation to sketch along with me, I'd love to see how your sketch is going. So feel free to shoot me a picture of that as well. maybe if you want, I'll even show it on the next live stream that we do. And if you, your feedback is really important to me with this type of thing. It's something new that I've been doing lately, and the second go around. So I'd like to do more of these. If you'd like to see more of these on a more consistent basis than just once a month, certainly let me know. I can do that. And if you have any recommendations on ideas to make it better or whatnot, I'd love to hear that too. The whole point of this is to be helpful and kind of let you see how I might approach a sketch. Now, you notice in this area here, I went ahead and put kind of this darker blue, bluish green in, and I'll go ahead and fill in that area with that darker bluish green. I do that on purpose because that's going to establish the darker values within that tuft of grass, and then I will come back into it with a much more intense, brighter, more warm green. As I mentioned earlier, this is just a sketch, right? So the goal here is not to make a perfect rendition of this scene. It's just to capture it in a general sense. In fact, this exact type of thing is the type of thing that I have my coaching clients do, because it's a great way to just practice and get better. And then, of course, I'm working with them, so they're able to get feedback from me on it and apply that feedback to the next sketch that they do. And what I find is that the learning cycle accelerates, because what we're doing is, we're kind of accelerating that making artwork, get feedback, apply the lessons that you learned to the next one. We're accelerating that by doing little sketches versus just doing big finished paintings that take a lot longer to do. You're still going to learn a lot, but that feedback loop is going to be much slower. So as you can see, I'm just adding in some dark accents into that shadow area, blending it in with what's underneath. A lot of times people will look at a scene like this and they'll see all that grass, and so what they'll do is they'll try to draw or paint, or I guess draw in with the paint, every little blade of grass. So you get caught up in the details, and the trick is to not do that. View these as larger light and dark shapes and get those values correct. And you want to create the feel of the object, not necessarily the subject, not necessarily the every detail in the subject. All right, we've got a question here. I'm guessing that the water-soluble oils dry faster than the regular oils. That's a great question, Mary. They're fairly comparable, to be honest with you, which is one of the things I really love about them. They, I would say if I do a painting, and this isn't a fast-drying medium that I'm using here, but if I do an oil painting like this, within 3 days or so, it'll be dry to the touch. Which is, I think, pretty similar to regular oils. If I use a drying medium, which they do have for these, much like a liquid or whatever Gamblin's, it's escaping me right this second, but whatever Gamblin's equivalent to liquid is, Galkite, or I think something like that. Then it'll dry faster, but Now, to be honest, I don't really love the Winsor & Newton dryer that you can add to this. It's very thick and sticky, syrupy, and yeah, not a fan. So I tend to not use it unless I absolutely have to. Now, in an alla prima painting, a lot of times we don't think of in terms of layering, but I'm going to be doing some layering in here, layering on some of those lighter, more intense values. So I'm just trying to lay a little bit of groundwork and lay some variety in the shadows here. And again, in case anyone just joined on recently, not sure if this is going to get completely finished today, but it will at least get a good start on it and get most of it done. Try and get it done, but no promises. I would say typically in the field when I'm doing these in plein air, for a little one like this, I'd be looking at an hour to an hour and a half. So I'm going to go ahead and put you can see how this is a slightly warmer, kind of a muddled gray. I'm going to put that in because as you can see, the grass on the left side there starts to get warmer as it goes up. So I'm going to kind of create a gradation. Most of the time in a painting, I feel like after you really get the hang of mixing colors and this and that, the next step is to start, not thinking in terms of color per se, but in thinking in terms of get your value right, number one, and number two, get your color temperature right. And I think if you can do that, boy, that will really help your work. And it helps to keep some of those assumptions that we have about color at bay. So a lot of times when we think of a tree, painting a tree, we think of a tree has to be this very specific green. Well, not really. Trees can be all sorts of different types of greens. There can be 5 or 6 greens within the same tree. So you got to be careful with not putting your own kind of assumptions in with what color things are. So as you can see, I'm practicing my multitasking, trying to complete a thought while painting. For a one-track mind artist, that can be a little tricky. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and I can tell you that in the photo or in the video, it's not capturing the warmth that I'm seeing in person here. But again, the video is not going to be perfect. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this up, and I'm not going to be worried about getting it perfect. And of course, as soon as I do that, it's going to blend into that water underneath because it's wet. So just kind of have to keep it at one little stroke here and there. And I don't want it to be too consistent. So we'll do that. And then I'm actually going to use my palette knife. And I got a little bit of that color on here. So I'm just going to dab that on. There's those little pods. And again, I'm not, this isn't a scientific illustration here. Just kind of want to get the feel of the texture of that. And then I'll go back in. And add some of those darker areas. All right, so for now, that kind of captures the general feel of that side of the painting. There's still more work to be done over here, but I will, for sake of time, come back to that later so I can move on to it. You can see how I approach another area. It is that transition is a little bit more gradual from warm to cool. And then if I do want to add any detail, I can come back in with my water and I could lay that on top. Again, you gotta be careful. We're working wet into wet here, so I can't blend too much. Otherwise, it's just going to blend together. But I can do a little bit, and that helps to shape that grass a touch. Now I notice that water is pretty dark as it comes down right here. So I'm going to go ahead and darken that. That way we can kind of get a little bit of contrast and see where our grass is. There we go, not too bad. Again, I'll say this again, that if you have any questions or anything, shoot me an email just in case the comment feature isn't working. I'll try and get to those. I have my email pulled up. You've been watching the whole time. Thank you for staying on. Really appreciate it. All right. So let's go ahead and move on. So I'm going to go ahead and move on over to the right side now. And we have that really kind of intense green. So let me grab here. We'll give you a little palette view. Switch it up. Be careful not to set it on top of my wet painting. All right, so I'm going to grab a little bit of this green that I have here, but it's not as intense as I would like it. So I'm going to bring it down here. And I have this green, but it's also not quite as intense as I'd like. So I'm going to mix in some yellow. Maybe just a dab of red. Now, red is green's complement, so that's going to kill the green just a bit, but I really want a warm color. Now, again, the camera is not going to pick that up quite the same as I see it in person, but hopefully you'll get the feel anyway. So you can see where this is, even on the camera, this is more intense than that. So I'm going to add some more yellow and just a little bit of white to it. The white's going to dull it a touch, but it'll raise the value. All right, let's give that a shot. And because it is so thick over there, I might just grab it with my palette knife and put it right on with the palette knife. And I do want to keep it from just being a blob on there. So, but with the palette knife, the beauty is that you get different types of marks, which is great. Just like anything else, you can overwork it, so you got to be careful, but I'll get some more of this bluish green. That way we have a little bit of a transition. Now, again, that needs to be finessed a little bit. It's a little on the rough side, but I'll do that with a little brush. Maybe add back in that shadowy area. And of course, that green I just put down is very thick, so it's going to want to blend. There's that dark patch in the middle. It's there, but it's pretty slight, so I'm going to go over that just to break it up a bit. I might come in with the water and kind of shape this left side. Now in my painting here, the angle is not quite the same as it is in the reference. Again, it's not that big of a deal, but for those of you that do art, that do some painting, that might be watching, you'll know it really is a process, isn't it? It doesn't all come together right away, and that's okay. You got to be careful to not get caught up in thinking it needs to be perfect right from the start, because when we do that, we're just going to get disappointed. So a lot of times I always tell my clients that most pieces are going to go through I call it the ugly stage in the middle, where you're probably not going to be super happy with it. And it's at that stage that a lot of people up and quit, and they just toss it and they say, I'm no good. It's too frustrating. I'm done. But usually just on the other side of that is a great result. And so if you can stick with it through the ugly stage and just stick to your guns, the end result is usually worth it. So when you see a painting like mine in this stage, it's kind of in that ugly stage right now, to where you can kind of see it coming together, but it definitely has a lot of work that needs to be done, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm going to take the, get that grass in on the right. We're coming up on about 9 minutes or so left. Might go a little bit long. So I'm going to lay that in with the palette knife here, and just Pierce. Nice. Yes. Well, no worries, sir. See, that's why you get a painting coach. They can help with that. Thanks for hopping on. So I'm just going to use this to kind of block in that grass and then go from there. So that grass really kind of works its way down into the green grass up there. And I can modify those edges a little bit with my small brush. See if I can get the exposure adjusted. That's a little better. Just trying to get that warmth to come through. Now, going back to Pierce's comment there about no one would want to see his painting. You'd be surprised at how many people I work with that say that when they start out. They're really worried about it, and no one ever wants to be that person that does the art thing, and then they stink at it. But the good news is, if you have a good program to follow, it really is foolproof. As long as you give it a good effort, it's amazing what you can get done. All right, so I'm over on my palette mixing up just a little bit more, just a little bit stronger orange. So forgive me for a second while I do that. You'll notice that this continues down the shore. Okay, so I got that blocked in. Now I'll use my little brush to finesse that a little bit to add that in, going to the left. Now, of course, it's getting farther away, so I don't want to go crazy here and make it too thick. But something like that should be just fine. And then you'll notice right along the top of that grass, there is a light value band kind of going up. So I'm going to put that in. I'll have to go in and add variety in there. But all right, so I'm going to grab a lighter version of that. And I don't know if the camera will pick it up very well, but I'm going to lay that in right along the top, nice and thick. Got a little bit of time left here. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Or if for some reason you can't leave a comment, shoot me an email and I'll see your question. I can try and answer it. And we see that lighter value just a little bit over here. All right, I'm going to tilt this up there. Now you can kind of see it a little bit better. Have to figure out that glare issue with the light. It's never perfect. We'll get there one stream at a time. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and start to modify the edge of the grass there where the warm meets the cool. Just with a small brush, just softening where I need to soften. It's grass, so of course it's got a real broken texture. I'll even add a little bit more red in there. So you can see how that area is a lot softer than these other areas because I'm just softening that edge and blending what's on top with what's below to give it a more natural feel. So I'll continue to go around and do that. So I know we're going for about an hour here. This is probably about an hour and a half painting, because you go through and you get everything in, and then it's all about going in and doing the touch-up stuff in the details. So probably not going to go for the full hour and a half, but I will post an image of it when it's done, so you can see that. So if you're not subscribed to my channel, make sure that you subscribe. Keep adding a little bit more here. Probably go, we're about to our limit now at an hour, but I'll go a little bit longer. Any of you watch sports, like baseball, sometimes when it goes into extra innings, they call it bonus baseball. That's what you're getting today, some bonus painting. So you can see how really going in and softening up those edges it really helps. And if you were, you can see it on the stream, but if you were to see this in person too, you'd notice that there really is not much detail in that grass. But if we can do a good job of softening values here and there, we can give it the feel of grass. All right, so I'm going to make a couple more little adjustments, and then we might we'll call it good here pretty quick. It's a problem when you have an artist do a live stream. It's hard to just stop. Maybe if you don't paint or draw and you're watching this, maybe you can maybe relate that to other things too. All right, so I mixed up a slightly darker version of this orange, and I'm going to lay that in. You know, especially here, these are vertical facing areas of the grass there. So they're going to naturally be a little bit darker. Now I'll have to go in and adjust those edges, but put a little bit of a shadow underneath. And again, I'll repeat, if you are watching this, and if you happen to be sketching along with me, I'd love to see how it's going. Shoot me an email at the email on the screen there. And if you want, I can even feature your painting that you do in the next live stream, which would be kind of fun. And just show it to people. It's more fun sometimes if these things can be interactive. So that's why I like questions, comments, painting along. All right, do some more detailing in the grass. Up here, variety is the spice of life. It's the same thing with the painting. It's important to keep everything constantly changing. That way it stays interesting, because if things are too similar for too long, it gets static and it gets boring, right? And it's just like any other thing. If you do the same thing over and over and over again, it gets boring. So you got to switch it up. So we have to do that in a painting too. Gonna mix up a little bit more of a dark neutral black. Spending a lot of time on that grass on the right because it really is kind of the focal area in some ways of the piece. So I want to make sure that it doesn't stink. So that it looks interesting and it kind of captures the character of that grass. And again, in case some new people have hopped on, always enjoy hearing your feedback on, maybe how the live broadcast goes from a technical standpoint, and always looking for ways to improve and get better. Not perfect at doing these by any means. The second one I've done. So if you have any comments or suggestions, shoot me an email. All right, I'm going to go ahead and add a few more darker areas in that grass. Going to add some alizarin and some burnt umber to the orange that I had. And again, I'm not sure how much of those subtleties are really going to show up on the screen or on the camera. Let's see. Let me go back in with that green just a bit. That warm grass does come down a little bit into this area. Now you always got to be careful when you're trying to mix a darker value on top of a lighter value. Usually, because the lighter values are so much more opaque, it's a little bit harder to get the look. So you have to overcompensate, knowing that it's going to mix in. You see, that might have been a little bit too much. So come back in and that's okay. This is looking a little better. All right, so I'm going to add a few more details in the shadow areas. Now that I've got a lot done on it, I might come back to the far right horizon and adjust that a little bit. So you can see things in better context now. I'm going to bring in a cooler green, dark green in the shadow area to add a little bit of variety in here so it doesn't feel like just a static area. Again, I know the camera won't pick up everything quite the way that I see it, but hopefully you'll get the idea. You know, one thing that bugs me a little bit is the edge of that grass where it meets the water. I think it needs to come in more. So I'm going to go ahead and just put that in there and bring that in like so. All right, I might go back and darken that up a little bit. I do think it needs to be a touch darker. So I'm going to grab my dark values here. Not black, because it is in the distance and it's covered by that fog, so or that mist. So we don't want to make it too dark, but and to retain that misty look, we want to keep all those edges nice and soft. Now, if you're looking at this and you're thinking, oh, geez, this would be kind of fun to do. Not sure I can do it, but it'd be fun. Well, I can help you out with that. I work with complete beginners quite often, taking them from I have no clue what I'm doing, I can only draw a stick person, to doing full-blown oil paintings that look pretty darn good. I've had a lot of students sell their work. They weren't even meaning to, but friends and family saw it and they said, hey, that is impressive. I didn't know you could do that. Could you paint a picture or draw a picture of this or that? Or can I buy that from you? And so that's always fun. So if you want to learn more about that, check out my site, which is right here, fountatelier.com. You can learn more about the online art coaching program. If you're in the Kansas City area and want to check it out in person, you can. Shoot me an email, and we'll set up a time to just do a completely free informational call to where, if you have artwork, I can review it and give you some thoughts, and just explain how the program works, get a feel for what your goals are. And then if it's a good fit, awesome, get you signed up. And if not, that's okay too. But at least we got to meet and talk, and you got to find out if it'd be a fit. So you should never sign up for anything that you don't feel like is going to help you achieve your goals. Okay, so I will probably continue to touch this up and finish it off. But we'll do the big reveal here. And what do I mean by that? We're going to take the tape off. Everyone loves this part. So let's go ahead and do that. So sorry for the hand shot there. We're going to pull that up. Get those nice crisp lines. Get this top one off. Lovely. All right, so I'll touch this up some more, but this gives you a good feel for how I might approach a oil painting like this. If you have any questions after the fact, send me an email. Happy to answer them. And sign up for my email list if you want to know when the next one is happening. And thank you for joining.